As homeschool moms, I have learned both for myself and in my experience walking alongside other homeschool moms, it's really easy to lose sight of yourself, who you are, what you need. You're juggling a lot of activities and children and responsibilities that you forget to actually listen to yourself. I've learned that living with self-awareness practices helps us to live more intentional lives. It helps us to connect in with what truly matters for each of us. But sometimes we have to wait until we hit the wall of overwhelm or burnout or just an internal disconnect and unhappiness. When we do, that's when we can begin to include activities that will help us to feel more connected, recognize that what we're actually doing matters, and that we feel like we enjoy our homeschool mom lives more. So I've learned self-awareness practices are really important. Intentional living as a homeschool mom means that we're aligning our values, the things that really matter to us, with the day-to-day activities. We're making deliberate choices that help us to clarify what we don't want to do and what we do want to do, which obviously affects our kids and ourselves. But I know firsthand how easy it is to get so caught up in the doing that we don't actually ever pause to reflect and assess what's really going on in our lives. And also assess and reflect on what's really benefiting our kids. So this week on the Homeschool Mama Self-Care podcast, I had a conversation around the influencers in our homeschool mom lives. Now, when I first wrote the post that preceded that podcast discussion, it was before Instagram existed. And so when I spoke to influencers, I actually wasn't talking about influencers with an Instagram following or a TikTok following. I'm talking about influencers, the people in our lives that influence us, just the regular people, or even people that we listen to on podcast or people that we read in books. And so especially this episode, I speak to the books that influence us, that help us to live a more intentional life. And in my experience, they did not all include just homeschool authors, although I enjoyed them myself and also happened to write my own book as well. And I haven't personally met all the authors that I speak about, and you're going to recognize a few of the names for sure. And you're going to say, yeah, because if you did meet them, I would have known. Like Brene Brown and anyways, various people that you probably know I haven't met. But they had a really big impact on me. And I'm sure that that's been your experience as well. And in the Homeschool Mama Book Club, we have conversations with discussions on the big books that influenced us, how we think about education, how we think about relationships, how we address this experience of overwhelm. They just help ground us a little bit. They help us to think differently in ways that actually really serve our families. That's why I intentionally stuck around just to highlight the influencers that have inspired me, have challenged me, and provided me my personal roadmap to live a more intentional life. And if you're wanting to join me in that book discussion, once a month we have a conversation in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective. Just ask me for the link. So to all the new folks that are here, I want to say a big warm welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you want to have personal support, you can just, mention a few things in the comment section, and there are other people in this group that would be happy to respond as well as me. And we're here to give you real support. So recognizing our influencers. In the podcast episode this week, I talked about books that shape our lives. I would love to hear if you also have a few books on your list that have really shaped your life. I am actually celebrating my 5-year book anniversary in the next few months, and I'm thrilled to share it. I have heard so many lovely things about having it on people's book stands beside their beds, and they talk about it being a real encouragement because it feels like real talk about real homeschool mom's experience. And I'll tell you that I did actually write a second homeschool mom book alongside my first. I just didn't publish it. It's all about, as I called it then, self-directed education. I now would probably rephrase the title and include leaning into child-inspired learning, because I see the value and the trend that parents want to include various things in their children's education. And we see that our children need to be shown a feast of possible opportunities. And so I would say child-inspired learning. But that was a conversation or a book that I've already written. And I'm sharing little excerpts of it in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective every once a month, Tuesdays. So today, and you can find the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective in Patreon. So I shared on the podcast, though, today a little excerpt of acknowledging the realities of the homeschool mom life. I think you're going to recognize yourself in this story. I shared that I wrote the book, my book, for the determined homeschool moms that push through their routines despite exhaustion. For the new homeschool moms beginning homeschooling with fervor but who quickly feel overwhelmed. For homeschool moms that grapple with perfectionism, loneliness, impatience, and self-doubt. My book offers straight talk about nurturing you, the homeschool mom. That's why it's called Homeschool Mama Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer. Writing that book was one of the most cool bucket list opportunities that I had in my life. I always had in mind that I would write a book, and now actually someone was asking me this past week, what are you going to do? Are you going to re-release it? And here's the thing, I'll tell you in the spring. I'll confirm the details for sure in the spring. But I've actually rewritten it already in various courses and coaching programs, and I have expanded significantly into each of the different pillars of the book. So topics like self-care, obviously, wellness strategies, emotional regulation, setting boundaries, bolstering relationships, deschooling, leaning into child-inspired learning, who you are beyond your homeschool mom role, and who you will be beyond your homeschool mom role when you're all done homeschooling, and also who you are and what you're supposed to be doing on the planet. Just as we focus on our children and we say, let them follow their curiosities and rabbit trails, we too need to follow our curiosities and rabbit trails, and we too get to have a seat at the homeschool table. So that is what I did in, I think it was 2018 that I wrote this. You can find this on Amazon or Etsy, but I wrote that book, and I wrote it to myself, and I also wrote it to you. One gal, Christina, had read it before it was officially published, and she said it was like going on a retreat from the comfort of my home. You made me feel understood and validated as a homeschool mom, reminding me that it's okay to take care of myself too. She also shared that based on her love of dark chocolate and her inability to have a daily shower, she wondered if I had spy cameras in her house, because I mentioned those things in the book. And no, indeed, I do not have spy cameras, Christina, but I just knew how much everyone needed that kind of encouragement. In the podcast episode this week, and I share here too, but much more briefly, that to live intentionally, I see that there's 10 things that you can do that can cultivate deeper purpose in your homeschool mom life. One is to prioritize self-care. You knew I was going to say that. When we recognize that we're not just homeschool moms, even though that is a grand role in our children's lives, we are someone beyond that. We're a person with emotional needs, physical needs, mental, spiritual, social, all the needs. And when we recognize that we too are humans in need of things, then we will begin to recognize that we need to live intentionally. That can be challenging when we have little ones around, and I remember that very well. It feels like yesterday some days, and then when I'm actually with a baby or toddler, I'm reminded, no, indeed, it was not yesterday, because my days are a lot quieter and I sleep much better at night. But we need to prioritize self-care, whether that includes including someone to look after the kids for a season or for maybe 15 minutes so you can go for a walk around the block, or maybe it's an evening once a week, but we need to prioritize time just for us. The second thing is to move your body, whether that is jumping on the trampoline with the kids or doing a yoga practice with their morning routine. You want to move your body every day. Be aware that your body has needs too. learning alongside your kids. You have a seat at the homeschool table too. It's not just your kids that can follow their interests and their curiosities. You can too. So choose the things that you enjoy learning as well. For me, that was fine arts. I loved it. And you can tell because I have 5 posts on my website just about fine art study. Clearly it was my passion. Actually is my passion. It's still my passion. And I learned things right alongside my kids during the morning basket when I would pull out various things to learn more about Impressionism or just all sorts of different art history. Another thing is nourishing your brain, whether it's including supplements or green smoothies to start your day, or just eating from the rainbow, being intentional about including foods that actually make you feel fueled in the morning. The 5th, and I think this is a really important one that is so really tricky to get, is to create quiet time, especially with certain kids. And I know that there are some kids that you're like, there's just no way I can get that quiet. And that's why you actually have to find time outside your home. Because if you are in the experience of having kids around and there's certain ones that just are, more energetic and they like to talk more and you're not getting enough time to think 2 thoughts consecutively, you need to have space or time away just to decompress. Also, maybe it's just an opportunity for you to find a place where you could pursue those curiosities outside of your home, outside of your children. The 6th thing you can do is foster friendships. So whether that's homeschool moms or not, it doesn't have to be. It just has to be someone that you actually feel connected to in some way, whether that's on a deep level where you're having a deep chit chat, or maybe it's just joining in a sewing group or something where there's a common hobby and sharing the hobby with somebody else. Of course, you're always welcome to join us every Friday to have a conversation with other homeschool moms like me who want to show up intentionally in their lives. Then the 7th thing you can do is really learn more about yourself, which is tricky, getting time away, it's tricky. But recognizing that you actually are working yourself out of a job. You are homeschooling right now. You are fully engaged in this family life, and it's a beautiful thing. And also they grow up and gradually need you less and less, and then you have more time for yourself, and eventually you work yourself out of a job. So you want to explore the parts of you beyond motherhood. You want to set relational goals as well. You want to nurture the relationships that are the most important to you with intention, because these people in your lives are setting an emotional atmosphere for each of the people in your family. So you want to really bolster your relationships so you can be in them intentionally. You also might want to engage your time intentionally. Oftentimes people say that they're overwhelmed, there's way too much going on, and it is true, it can be so, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a rite of passage living in this, Western culture where we value productivity and quiet meditative moments are fleeting, if non-existent. We really can spend time slowing down by assessing or auditing our time and asking what really matters. Because just because it's on someone's list out there doesn't mean it has to be on yours. If you don't value an activity in your life, don't do it. You have only a certain amount of time every day, and you can't do everything. So if you audit your time and discover there are some things that really don't matter and you really don't care, but everyone else seems to be doing it and they think it's important, then I just encourage you to assess it and say, but does it? Does it really matter? Because building in margins, building in quiet space where you haven't filled an activity, building in that margin so you can have solitude, that helps you to feel more present, to feel balanced. It helps you to enjoy all the different elements of your life that do matter. And of course, celebrate the fact that there is no one-size-fits-all homeschool family. There is no one-size-fits-all homeschool mom. There's no one right approach to homeschooling and no one right way to approach motherhood either. So who you are is exactly who you need to be, even in the learning journey that you're on, the personal growth journey that you're experiencing right now, in all the ways that you look at yourself and say, There are some things I wish I would figure out so that I wouldn't have to deal with this stress, frustration, guilt, you name it. You are where you're at right now, so fully accept your journey, accept who you are, and recognize this is your story. Fully engage your personal growth journey and recognize that everybody's unique, your children and you. And that being so, it means that your homeschool experience will be different than the neighbors or other people you see on Instagram. So if you're looking to live more intentionally in your homeschool mom life, why not join us in the Homeschool Mama Book Club? Once a month, we're going to have a conversation around a book. We're an influencer, an authorial influencer who is going to help us live intentionally. And don't worry if you haven't read the book. It's okay. No one expects you to. I make sure everybody hears it every single time. I really don't expect you to. If somebody had said to me, we're going to have a book club and we're going to read a different book every month, I would say, I can't come because I could not possibly have read that many books that frequently. And yet I know some of you do because some of you do. And listening to audiobooks sometimes makes that easier, especially if you are in the minivan a lot, bringing kids to various places, or you also happen to like to walk the dog with the podcast or listen to an audiobook while doing the laundry. So it's not impossible, but I get when it feels almost impossible. Some of the books that we've explored together are The Charge by Brendan Burchard, Growing Yourself Up by Jenny Brown, Unschooling to University by Judy Arnell, Thinking Differently About Learning by Angela and Marin from the Homeschool Unrefined podcast. That's the book we just discussed. And next up for November, we'll be reading The Awakened Family by Shefali Sabri, Tsabury. So those are just some of the books that we have been discussing. If you would like to, if you know that you can't join the book club, but you would love to read about these books, I have a Homeschool Mama Book Club newsletter. Ask me for the link and I will grab that for you. I do a deep dive in newsletters once a week to share with you various books that can be authorial influencers. One of the moms this past year that is part of the book club, she said that it's actually a really cool way to be introduced to various books. If she's not able to read all the books, at least she knows that there's a certain book that addresses a certain topic, but sometimes it helps her to be convinced that she definitely needs to read certain books. And when I'm talking about, books beyond homeschooling, I'm talking about books that are exploring relationship dynamics or books that are helping us learn to emotionally regulate. There's books on how to become more you and to tap into your creativity. There's just books across the spectrum, except, to be fair, no read-alouds, not in this book club, although we love read-alouds. I can't tell you how many times I have heard moms say that they would love to write their own children's book. I think that's pretty cool. Maybe it's because we fell in love with read-alouds. And if that's you, by the way, when you join the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective, we are having a book discussion once a month, but we're also having a writer's room once a month where you can explore your writing voice, or if you want to be reinforced in your journaling practice, you're welcome to join. And if you haven't already heard, so on Fridays, we have a Confident Homeschool Mom Collective at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You're welcome to try it out for 7 days. It's free, but it's not just a conversation once a week. It is a very supportive, authentic conversation. And it's also an opportunity to have coaching in your back pocket, because on Mondays we do a check-in to see how people are doing. On Tuesdays, I give you a private audio podcast. This week I'm going to be talking about giving a little excerpt from my book around self-directed education. And then Wednesdays, I typically give you some form of free resource. And then Thursdays, we do a clarifying question or journal prompts that'll help you to clarify where you're at in your homeschool. You might want to use that in your mindfulness moments or in your journaling practice in the morning. And on Friday, we celebrate your small wins. So it's like having coaching in your back pocket. So that, I think, is all I need to share with you this week. But I would love it if you would also introduce yourself. If you haven't already introduced yourself in the group and you're new to the group, I would love to hear more about you. You're also welcome to join us in a real live conversation on Friday. And welcome. I hope you have a beautiful week.